Kamala Harris just sat down for an interview on Fox News and it was an utter calamity. And let's just say, joy has left the building. What became abundantly clear in this interview is that Kamala Harris, because she's never been pressed before, the second you press her on anything, she crumbles. She cracks and crumbles like a fortune cookie that's been run over by an 18-wheeler. Shattered. Right from the beginning, she was asked about immigration, which is her least favorite subject because she's overseen the worst immigration crisis in American history. She immediately tries to blame Donald Trump for the crisis at the border, but Bret Baier, he says, no, 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 you guys rolled back all of those executive measures like Remain in Mexico that were keeping the crisis under control. And we found out afterward that Kamala Harris, she showed up late, they tried to whittle it down to 20 minutes, and then she had 4 staffers waving their arms frantically, trying to shut it down.
What's going on, guys? So by now, most of you all have probably already seen this disastrous Kamala Harris Fox News interview with Bret Baier. Okay, so of course, you already knew that there was gonna be fallout. Okay, the fake news of the MSDNCs and CNNs of the world are coping and seething, talking about this interview was unfair and it was sexist. It's got to the point of just straight up hilarity. Take a look.
The first bill, practically within hours of taking the oath, was a bill to fix our immigration system.
Yes, ma'am. It was called the U.S. Citizenship Act of 2021.
Exactly.
It was essentially a pathway to citizenship for the... Yes, ma'am.
May I finish responding, please? But you have to let me finish,
You
please.
had the White House and the House and the Senate,
I'm
and they didn't bring up that bill.
I'm in the middle of responding to the point you're raising,
Okay.
and I'd like to finish.
Yes, ma'am.
And that was the opening exchange, Mika. It went on like that for nearly 30 minutes. It goes without saying that Donald Trump would not be given the same treatments, talked over, not allowed to finish those questions. It doesn't mean the topics weren't fair. There was a lot in there that viewers wanted to hear from Kamala Harris. Why do you have different positions now than you did in 2019? How are you going to fix the immigration crisis? All fair questions, but Donald Trump obviously would never be treated that way on Fox News.
No, not by, I mean, I've watched Bret Baier for years. That's just, that was different. It was supposed to give viewers an opportunity to actually hear her plans as president. Instead, as you saw, it almost immediately devolved into an embarrassing bad faith effort by a once respected host to play to an audience of one. The host's constant, rude interruptions were designed to distract from the issues and facts that Trump and his acolytes try and twist and distort every day. And on Fox News, they try and avoid. And they couldn't. Did she do well in this environment? Of course. Yet there were times she was shaking on answers about immigration. He kept coming after her, interrupting the vice president awkwardly and unnecessarily.
Look at Mika over here crying. Oh, they were so unfair to Kamala. They interrupted her so much. It's because she's a woman. They had to interrupt her because of misogyny. Shut the hell up, Mika. We're talking about somebody who's trying to be president of the United States. They interrupt Trump, Vance, Byron Donalds, Tom Cotton, Mike Johnson. I mean, God, everybody, all of them, they're extremely contentious, combative, and they interrupt them constantly. And when they don't, you guys get mad that they don't actively fact check. Well, you should have fact checked that. You should have, don't just let them get away with saying whatever. But now all of a sudden when it happens to one of your guys, all of a sudden you don't like that. When it happens to the cackler, when she's actually being exposed, you don't like it so much, do you? These folks on CNN were really off the wall. Like this one guy had the audacity to try to say that not only did Kamala Harris do good, but that Trump wants the border open. Even his own guys were laughing at his stupid dumbass.
And you know, my friend is saying, oh, this was horrible. It was horrible. She did horribly, this and that. I thought that was an absolute home run because the audience.
This friend right here next to you that you're talking about?
This friend right here. So, oh my God, it was a fire. It was a massacre. No, that was a home run because she sent the one message that needs to be sent, which was, I will go anywhere at any time and show the courage necessary to speak to every American, because that's what a real president does. The primary critique against her prior to this point was that she was not doing enough interviews. No one thought that the Fox News interview was going to go swimmingly every step of the way. Everyone knew it would be adversarial, but she showed exactly what she needed to show, which was that she is a leader ready to be president on day one.
Did he just convince you?
No, and I love Max. He's a great guy. The reality is she's just now doing this. I told the former congressman, if I were advising the vice president, I would not have advised this unless my internals suggested that I was in trouble. You're looking to appeal to, I assume, some maybe moderate-leaning Republicans, maybe some Republicans who aren't necessarily tied to the former president. I don't think she persuaded them, Aaron, to vote for her in this debate. Her answers on immigration, she said, well, Donald Trump tanked the bill. Let's say you believe that. And Bret Baier said, but what about the first 2 years, where in the first 2 years you had the highest crossings of illegal crossings into the country? And then she said, but Donald Trump. She didn't answer. He then asked her, well, what about your position on supporting taxpayer dollars for gender transitions for those detained, migrants that is? She said, well, Donald Trump had a similar law when he was president. Bret said, okay, that's fair, Madam Vice President, but it didn't occur under the Trump administration. What about your position? She didn't answer it. There were a lot of unanswered questions. I'll give her credit. She was stern, she was firm in her defense of her positions. But in terms of persuading conservatives or Republican-minded voters, I'm just not convinced she did it.
So as we look at this, right, she took the answer head on, noted for a fact that she wants the border closed and Donald Trump wants it open.
What?
Slap yourself. Mr. Taylor. Harder. Harder.
Along with the rest of the political party, the Republicans, who are his blind sycophants on this matter, as on everything else.
I mean, wait a minute here. The vice president, once upon a time, supported taxpayer dollars, your money, my money, your money, all the people who are watching, to go towards people who broke the law coming into our country, to give them driver's license, to pay for tuition when we're struggling to pay for our own children to get a college education. Then her own running mate signed into law in his own state these very things that she's now saying she's now against them. And American people are supposed to believe that the vice president has now all of a sudden had an epiphany. And all of a sudden, all of her beliefs have magically changed, yet the guy she chose clearly believes these things. And you're flipping it to Republicans?
No, I'm merely noting. And again, very nice job dodging my point. Very nice job dodging my point. Donald Trump wants the border open. Vice President wants it closed.
No one believes
the
that.
Vice President took...
Where do you get that? I don't think anybody in this country thinks he wants it open and she wants it
Oh, my God.
closed.
If Donald Trump for a second wanted the border closed, during this campaign, he would have gotten behind that bipartisan piece of legislation. We all know that. Collectively, the Republican Party wants this as a political wedge issue. And look, I went down to the border 5 years ago as a member of Congress when Donald Trump was president and saw that it was in massive crisis at that point, that Donald Trump was separating scared mothers from their children. At that point 5 years ago, this was a massive issue and a massive disaster under his presidency as well.
And if the current president and the vice president who's running to be president wanted to secure the border, they would have in the first 2 years when they had the House, when they had the Senate, they did nothing.
You got guys like freaking Stelter. You guys remember Brian Stelter? Like, yeah, me neither. But this idiot tried to come out and say that Kamala Harris did her job. Like, she did great.
Just not the Twitter's real life ever, but looking at it seemed like a Rorschach test right from the beginning of how people were going to see. Did she crush it? Did she blow it? What was the outcome of the interview?
I think Trump refused to debate Kamala Harris again, so Harris did the next best thing. She booked a debate on Fox News. And that's what this was tonight. She essentially walked into a Trump campaign field office because anchor Bret Baier, who is a solid journalist, he is also incredibly sympathetic to Trump because that's what his fans want. That's what his viewers want. His viewers want him to represent the Trump point of view. So it was almost as if you had a Trump surrogate interviewing Kamala Harris. And look, adversarial interviews are a good thing. We should root for them. We should want more of them. You know, you're so fantastic at adversarial interviews where we challenge newsmakers and we get answers out of them. But yes, this was a Rorschach test. Some people think Baier was mansplaining. Other people think Harris was filibustering. I think at the end of the day, this was all about one word, the word tough. It showed that Harris was tough. She went into the so-called Fox den, and that's how Harris's campaign is promoting it tonight. They're saying she went into the Fox den and look what happened.
Even Fruit of the Loom Lemonhead over here, Don Lemon, has something to say. This is how you know that Bret Baier did his job and that this was a terrible idea for the Harris campaign because of all these meltdowns. If it wasn't making Harris look bad, they wouldn't be melting down about it.
You're doing the American people and your viewers a disservice because the people in your media bubble echo chamber will never see the truth. You put on television a flat out lie. Are you going to fix it?
But there was at least a little bit of actual sanity here because based Scott Jennings of CNN decided to go ahead and cook this man, you know, him along with this other fella that you saw earlier, the black dude, I can't remember his name, but Scott Jennings has been cooking and toasting the hell out of these radical leftists over and over again. And he calls out the stupidity and the audacity for them to try to like pretend that Kamala Harris could somehow turn this into a positive, which ain't no mother effing way.
No answer for why Biden and Harris threw out Donald Trump's executive orders and changed everything, and then a flood of people came in. An ounce of humility here would go a long way, and she doesn't have it in her to do it, and she has no real answer other than to blame Congress. And Bret was right. Democrats controlled everything when they took over, and so is she saying it's the Democrats' fault that the immigration system is broken? I don't understand this. I don't understand why she can't just say, hindsight here, we shouldn't have done it. I think the American people would actually accept it, but she won't do it.
The only thing that would have made this sweeter is if I could have found Van Jones crying again. Okay, I haven't seen him respond to this interview, but I really wanted to see this leftist get in his feelings. Okay, I can't wait till election day because you know that it's coming, guys. You know that these leftists can't help but get upset because they're just a bunch of little children running around in adult bodies, right? So this little kid, this little P word on Crying Negro Network, CNN, is going to be my primary source of entertainment come election day. Okay, I can't wait for the meltdowns on TYT with Cenk Uygur's goofy ass, CNN, and oh man, MSDNC, freaking Joyless Reed, Rachel Maddow. Oh man, The View is about to be lit. Trump is up in basically all the polls. Just recently, another poll released saying that Donald Trump is officially up in every swing state. It's going down. Just be vigilant, guys. If you haven't voted, be sure to get out there. If you wait till election day, something may happen. And if something happened to a certain fraction of people, it could be 1%, it could even be less than 1%. Then we turn around and lose the whole thing. It'll be all you guys' fault who decided to wait until election day. So be sure to get out there and vote as soon as you can. But I'm loving these meltdowns, guys. Hopefully you're loving them too. If so, you already know what to do. Drop a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. I appreciate you watching the Black Anomaly Rising channel. I'm out.
In 2021, Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, they had the House, the Senate, and the White House. She is lying when she says Donald Trump is responsible for the crisis at the border.